Well, another episode of Journey with Michael and Ryan, and yours truly, Michael, right here. Ryan's still overseas on his exceptional honeymoon over in South America, having a fun time there with his beautiful bride Van, seeing some of her family, all the good things. And as I promised last week, I have in the hot seat Mr. Brad Roach.
Back from the depths of illness.
Welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Oh,
I appreciate it.
Man, we're gonna have some fun with this one.
I think so.
You've had such. I mean, we've known each other for quite a few years now, in various different states of being, and so you've actually just moved in to the portal, our house, and made it your home.
In the portal.
Yeah, and you've got an exceptional story, man, just of what you've been up to, even just the last year, and I think it's going to be a really cool journey tale for the podcast journey, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that listen to it will really benefit from it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I was actually just talking to my friend Alta on the phone, who I've not spoke to in pretty much bang on a year, and he was like, what's going on, man? I don't even remember what you look like anymore. And I said, yeah, it's been a big year. It's been a big year of kind of being in the cave, of being a bit of a recluse, of being pulled away and just kind of working on myself and going to the shadowy stuff and the uncomfortable stuff. And here's me kind of re-emerging from my cocoon. So I think this is a really, really good way to do it, rather than trying to update everyone individually on what's been going on the last year. Just kind of covering it on a podcast like this. It's quite fitting.
Everyone will be like, oh, hey, what have you been up to? Well, here's the link.
Here's the link. That should tell you everything, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully. And if it doesn't, we'll cover it on another one.
Beautiful, brother. Well, I think let's just start on how you got to New Zealand. Obviously, you know.
Oh, okay.
You've got the English accent, and give us a bit of a historical overview of you. Where have you come from? How did you get here? And let's tuck in.
How long we got? Well, I live here, so we'll just keep this running for.
We can just keep
24 hours a day.
Like, this might be the longest podcast we've ever done.
Okay. Where shall I begin? Okay. I grew up in England, in Yorkshire, a town called Rotherham. Blue collar, working class. I'm not going to shit on my hometown, but
Not the most conscious place. It's a alcohol-driven society, and I always found myself kind of the black sheep, if you like, or not really fitting in. I knew from a young age that I didn't want to live in England. I knew that very young, from like 7 or 8 years old. And I, for some reason, always wanted to live in America. So I left England at 18 years old, and I went to the States, and I worked on and off in the States for 5 years. And during my time working there, I kind of worked all over the States, but mainly in Pennsylvania. I met my best friends, or some of my best friends. Everyone's my best friend, really, Chris and Ash. And Chris is from England, Ash is from Australia, from Perth. And we had 2 other friends, one from Christchurch, one from Devonport. And what a random happening, all these kind of people meeting in backwoods Pennsylvania.
In Amish country?
In Amish country, yeah. We were right in the middle of Amish country. It was a kids' summer camp, mainly Jewish. But yeah, surrounded by Amish community, rednecks, hillbillies, very backwards. And we worked and lived out there together for 5 years, pretty much. And during those last months at the camp, we knew it was our last year working there. And so we made a bit of a pact, and we were like, at some point down the line, let's regroup, re-meet. And we decided that would be in New Zealand, since though 2 of the friends were from here. I went back to England for nearly a year, tried to build my business there as a personal trainer. Just wasn't going well. The demand for kind of health and wellness there didn't exist. And I didn't like being there. And so not long after that, we kind of all got in touch with each other. The timing was right for everyone. We moved into a house in One Tree Hill. I came out on New Year's Eve 2015, and 8 years later, here we are. I went home last year in September for the first time in 6 years to see my family. But yeah, other than that, it's been 8 years here. I'm a permanent resident now. I got my permanent residency earlier last year, and so yeah, this is home.
This is home, and you love it here?
I love it here. Big believer in the universe just kind of operating in its divine way, and I think we're all just kind of souls blowing in the wind, and this is kind of where I ended up. I've got a New Zealand family here that I absolutely love and adore. They're amazing people. I started training them in the physio clinic I work at when I first moved to New Zealand, and they're, you know, literally like family. I go there for dinner. I've stayed there over the last year at points while I've been on this journey, which I'll go more into. But yeah, I found a New Zealand family that I really connect with. I can connect with them on a spiritual level too, which I never had with my family in England, which is really healing in itself. And yeah, I've got an amazing friend network here now as well, an amazing work network too. So I'm just blessed all around here.
Yeah, and you're really stepping into your life, man. Like, it's been beautiful to witness you in the last, 12 months, 18 months of just stepping in, and you're starting to really create some things that haven't been created before, and it's taking some time, but you're just sticking with it, and like it'll pay off.
Yeah, and I feel like that's life, right? It's not always just a stepping in. There's inevitably going to be a stepping out and a re-stepping in. And so I've had some amazing years with working in the physio clinic, and I've got to meet and work with some amazing athletes and actors and actresses from all over the world. Just met some really amazing people. Opened the Holistic Hub, which some people that are watching may know of or have been into and experienced. But we ran that model for a year. That was full on. That was really busy. But that was a lot of free work. It was a lot of volunteer time.
So let's go back to that. I'd like to open that up and dive into it a little bit more.
Sure.
Because that's probably where you and I first connected quite a lot. Was probably just before the hub. We kind of met through a similar group of friends, and then the hub came up. So let's talk about the hub, because that was quite it was quite a beautiful creation that came out of just the minds of a bunch of people and actually got together and made it happen. Because you were kind of the architect of that really happening, weren't you? You had like the connection to the client of yours, had the money and the funds to back it, and the venue. So let's go into that, man, because that really impressed me about how you kind of put all that together and what it was and what it became, and then ultimately its downfall.
Well, first of all, I'll give credit to the mushrooms, because they were really the catalyst for the idea, if you like. The idea around the Holistic Hub actually came to me on a deep mushroom sit. A few years ago. I think, like I kind of briefly touched on, coming from England, not the most conscious place, I found myself quite young going through a spiritual awakening, if you want to call it that, falling deeper into yoga and meditation and mindfulness, and starting to kind of peel back the layers of the matrix that have kind of been the walls that have been put up through our childhood, and just realizing the world didn't really operate the way I thought. But I couldn't really relate to anyone on that in England. I felt like I was going crazy. And so I think a huge healing part of coming to New Zealand for me was finding a community of people that were on the same wavelength as me. And it really, really just, blew the doors of perception open, because all of a sudden I'm at Spirit Fest or Earthbeat, and I'm meeting, the likes of Michael and Ryan and Rich Hackney and and Sam and all these amazing people that are, individually doing their own work in that space. And that was a breath of fresh air for me. It's like, wow, I'm not going through this alone. There are people that are in this space of consciousness, of self-awareness, of working on themselves, and helping other people get there. And so during this mushroom experience, I had this vision of each one of these people being like a pebble being dropped in a pond. And that pebble creates a little ripple. And that ripple is really the effect of consciousness on the rest of humanity from doing the work on ourselves. You turn other people's lights on once your own's turned on. And then I had this vision of, wow, like imagine all of these amazing practitioners all working out of one space. That's like sticking all these pebbles into a massive boulder and dropping it in a pond. And the ripple that would create across Auckland or New Zealand or the rest of the world would be massive. And so that really was the catalyst of the idea. There's a great man that I have worked with for the last few years called Mark. I met him at the physio clinic, and he is very good friends with a guy that owned this church, this old church in Mission Bay. He was kind of going through a healing process himself. We kind of pitched this idea to him, and he was, all for it. Saw how it could benefit the community. And how it could really help people mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so he was fully behind the idea. He gave us the building for a year, rent free. We had to pay, the power bills and the rates, but what an opportunity to be given this huge space rent free for a whole year to kind of build a sustainable business model to be able to continue this forward. And so that's really where it started. And so I sat down and I remember creating a group chat on Messenger called the Galactic Force of Consciousness. And there were several names in that chat, one of them being Mike. And those are the people that really stood out to me as kind of pillars in the community, if you like, that were really, doing the work, showing up, and could have a really, strong, beneficial hold on the growth of other people.
And how could you not get drawn to a Facebook chat name like that?
Yeah, I mean, that came quite quick. I'll take credit for that one. That wasn't the mushrooms. Galactic Force of Consciousness. So really that was the start of the hub.
Yep.
And the year and a half, pretty much, until, the hub came to a close. Any questions around that?
Well, no, I mean, it's just a beautiful premise. I mean, I was, fortunate enough to obviously be involved, not as in deeply or directly as, the handful of you guys that really set it up, but I did my bit and did what I could, and it was just a beautiful space to really be a part of. And the community started to grow, and practitioners started to grow, and we were doing ayahuasca ceremonies in there, and I think you were doing some mushroom psilocybin ceremonies in there, and I remember we did a big opening day, and that was fun. We did a big rape ceremony in there, and there was a lot of beautiful things happening in there. Like it really, your vision to create that was powerful, man. Like it was, and you put it together, and you put the right people together. And I'm a big believer of like the alignment of all things will align at some point. It's not coincidence because it's all divinely created, but also you have your own free will to pick and choose what you want to divinely create as well. But the lights were aligned. The lights were green. Of the people that were involved and got it together, and everyone bought their own little community and got involved, and there were some fun things that were happening. What do you think the biggest challenges were when you were trying to create this? Because I mean, community building's huge for me, and especially like with my company in Beta and all of that. Like, what do you think worked well, and what do you think were some challenges that you've learned from while you're setting that up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were very lucky in the fact that we didn't have to pay rent. I mean, that would have been a massive challenge straight off the bat, trying to, develop enough resources financially to be able to do that. So it was a massive blessing to have that space for a year to try and make it work. Of course, we had the whole COVID agenda unravel during this early process of opening the doors, which I'm proud to say didn't affect me in the slightest. Like I said, the walls of the matrix have been pulled away for me for a while. There was no fear there. There was no guilt there. I kept the doors open in level 4. I'll happily talk about it.
Yeah, totally. Go into it, man. For sure.
We kept the doors open. There was no scanning. There was no mask wearing. It was just drop your fear at the door. Drop all of that propaganda and agenda at the door, and come in and lay your soul bare, as we're supposed to.
And there were no outbreaks.
And no outbreaks. Well, an outbreak of love, would you believe? And so that in itself was a challenge. The building was definitely an old building. We had leaks from the roof and different maintenance issues that we had to try and take care of. And really, we had a team of half a dozen people that were all volunteers, including myself. There wasn't enough to pay ourselves to do it, and so it was a chunk of 3 hours a week for all of us individually to kind of pull this thing together and make it work. We had the the admin side of it, the marketing side of it, the person that was doing the invoicing and the booking of the space for practitioners, and then all these meetings that went on with the kind of higher ups that were giving us the building and trying to show a sustainable business model in order to keep this thing going.
Now, in the initial vision, I kind of saw the community, in air quotes, whatever that is, the spiritual people, kind of pulling together and making this thing work, make it sustainable. But in order to do that, there had to be kind of an injection of cash. That's people showing up to workshops, paying for the space, people, benefactors funding to keep the place running. And I found that it just never really happened for one reason or another. And I think there is an element of money scarcity in the spiritual community, especially.
Yep.
And the money just wasn't there for us to maintain it and keep it going. And I love that experience. I love what we gave to people, especially during that lockdown period, because it was a massive struggle for people mentally, especially people that didn't have kind of practices and tools and modalities to maneuver through that. And so I remember the hub went online. We had Zoom classes. You ran an amazing, powerful rebirth in breathwork.
Actually, that was really powerful. I forgot about that. There was like 30 people on there.
It's actually one of the best breathworks I've done.
Yeah.
And I've done many breathworks in person with people and in big groups and small groups. And yeah, just that one breathwork we did on Zoom was probably one of the most memorable breathworks I've done.
Yeah.
And so we were really supporting people through that whole time. And, I've got nothing but positive, great memories about the hub because of how many people it really helped. And it helped me grow a lot.
How did you grow from that?
I had to learn to be more assertive. That definitely was a theme running into what happened after the hub, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yep.
But yeah, I had to find myself separating myself from the role of a friend and the role of a businessman or a business partner, because those two things have to be separate. You can't bring the emotion of a friendship into the business space or the working space. It's literally business, and so you have to remove kind of the emotive energy behind it. And so having hard conversations with people and pulling people up for, maybe not cleaning the hub afterwards or leaving it in good condition, and being a people pleaser and, having that kind of element about myself. Some of those conversations were confrontational or difficult.
Yeah, challenging.
Challenging, yeah. I had to maneuver through that and learn to be assertive in that role. And it was a huge test. I think Ram Dass is a huge kind of mentor, guru, if you like, of mine. I've listened to hundreds of hours of Ram Dass, and he's had a huge influence on me as a person and the kind of direction that I've taken in life. And he would say, serve people. We're here to serve people. There is no I. The I is an illusion. We're kind of driven by our egoic needs and our own kind of selfish wants and desires. And so for a large period of time, I had to put what I wanted in that moment on the back burner because I had this charitable business to run, and it was taking up more and more time. I found myself doing more free work than paid work. It was affecting me financially. My savings were going down, but I was loving it, and I was loving the outcome of it, and the buzz that it was creating and how much it was helping people. And for me, that was a far more benefit than money was. Until I had no money.
Yeah. It's all fun and love and games until you can't pay your rent, right? And it's finding that fine balance and fine balance, and like watching all you guys putting that together and seeing it, because at that time I think I just started beta, and I was just starting to go through the R&D process, and I was doing a lot of auctions back then, so I didn't have a lot of time. I turned up when I could turn up, but every now and then, you see like a bit of a quibble between a couple of you guys, and it didn't really get sorted, or it did get sorted, and but that's life. When you start to carve your own path in anything that you do, these things are going to come up, and it's what you learn from doing these things, and it's just by doing, as you say, like you learned how to feel better at having challenging conversations with people who it's even more challenging when they are your friend, because it's like, hey, I need to have this conversation now. It's up to you whether you take it personal or not, because it's not personal, but it's about, hey, look, when you ran that X, Y, and Z workshop, there was stuff all over the mat and I had to come and clean up. It's utilizing my time. Can you please be a little bit more mindful of it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for a lot of people, that's a really challenging conversation to have with anyone, let alone a friend that you've gone into business with, So I think like what you're talking about there of the skill sets that you've taken out, I think this is like a prequel to like the next steps you were taking in your life over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's a nice way to look at it. I like that. Like everything's just a stepping stone to our own growth and evolution, right?
Yeah.
And so although the model didn't work out the way I expected or last as long as I'd hoped it would, it was all perfect.
Mate, it was beautiful, you know, and for whatever time it existed, you tried to do something, you know. We all tried to do something.
Yeah, and that's the win in itself, right? Like the comfort zone is where dreams go to die, right? You sometimes, even with you and Beta, right? It's really putting both feet in and going for it. You don't know you don't know the outcome. You know it's going to be a lot of work, but unless you actually put your mind to something and go for it,
Yep.
You know, what's the alternative?
Yeah. No, that was it. And it was just from you being out in the world, just being your genius in your, you know, physical movement, you know, business and having these high-end, you know, clients that trusted you and worked with you, and you were still, you know, you weren't preaching to them about how you see the world, but you were just, you know, offering them a different way to be more present, to, you know, hey, look at this. I mean, you've made all this money, you know, what's it for? And get them to have a look at that. And then, you know, then they became a philanthropist and then offered up a building for a year for free. That's in one of the most wealthiest suburbs in Auckland for, you know, a bunch of, what I'm sure in his head were a bunch of hippies to come and sing and dance around, you know. But it was a beautiful move on your part, man, to be able to sell that and to be able to create that vision. And, you know, this is why I actually just had a meeting just before, and I was talking, you know, he's a professor of sports science, and he's a professor in food technology and all these different things. And what I said to him, it's about when you're trying to create movements, when you're trying to create things in the world, you know, and it's to offer to as many people as possible. Well, it's about trying to get the articulation of the language right. You know, it's about how do you get them through that door, because it doesn't matter how you get them through that door as long as they get through that door. And for everybody, that's going to be a different way of being able to explain it so they can understand it. And so for you, whatever you did and how you showed up, that was the ability to be able to get this person through the door so they can help back your movement, you know, and you know, make it happen.
Yeah, and I think that is really one of the biggest skills as a practitioner, kind of in this space, is kind of having the nuance to see the best way to navigate someone through that door, because that looks different for every person. Do you take the high-end businessman in his 3-piece suit and throw him straight into an ayahuasca ceremony? Probably not. Can we start with some breathing? Yeah. You know, and so it's understanding quite quickly someone's personality type and then knowing how to cater to that person's personality to kind of help them maneuver down that path in a way that suits them. And that really was kind of one of the other bigger ideas behind the hub, was really creating a place where you've got, you know, this mixing pot of modalities. You know, a rape ceremony, not my medicine, but really works well with some people. You don't know until you try. Ecstatic dance is extremely cathartic and healing for some people. For others, it's just a bit of crazy dancing. Yoga, cacao ceremonies, plant medicine work, guided meditations. Like, these are all different ways of getting to the same place. It's just giving people the options to try these different things and find what works.
Yep.
Because it's different for everyone, right?
It's a beautiful way to put it, and I couldn't have put it better myself. So tell us about your yogic self, because it's a pretty big part of you.
Yogic self.
Your yogic self. You know, because I mean, there's not many people that can just sit on the ground, put their legs behind their head, you know, bend and contort the way that you can. I think it's pretty impressive. It's pretty incredible, and you've really utilized and understood it, and then turned it into your own medicine now. But I'd love to just take us on your path and journey of yoga, because I think it's a big part of where you are and who you are now.
Yeah. So yoga kind of develops. Again, everything happens within the universe's divine way, right? We stumble upon things in just the most random of ways. It was actually when I was working in the States, I think in my fourth year there, I was training in the gym with my friend. Really stupid, embarrassing injury. I did a reverse lunge, of all things. My front leg buckled, my kneecap popped out, went onto the side of my leg. I just instinctively smacked it back in place. My leg puffed up 3 times the size. And when I got back to England, I had surgery on it. They said it'd take 9 months probably to fully recover from this surgery. I knew of something called DDP yoga, DDPY yoga. DDP was a professional wrestler back in the
Diamond Dallas Page.
Bang! Shout out. So a professional wrestler back in the 90s. And he had a lot of injuries from professional wrestling. And so he created a yoga program, and his tagline was, "It ain't your mama's yoga."
It ain't your mama's yoga.
It ain't your mama's yoga. This isn't your run-of-the-mill, put your Lululemon stuff on yoga. This is a workout yoga. This is a man's yoga.
This is man's yoga.
And that was the pitch.
Cool.
But the whole premise of this yoga was for injury rehabilitation. And so I knew of it already. I thought maybe this is a good thing to do for my knee. And so I started doing DDP yoga pretty much every day. I followed his full schedule. And within 3 months, not only was my knee absolutely fine, my whole body was the strongest it'd ever been. I don't just mean strong as in physical strength. I mean functional strength, mobility, the whole lot. Balance, proprioception, all of it.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 19,
Okay.
20. So that really was my window into yoga. Of course, a very westernized style of yoga, not your traditional styles. But that really was my doorway into yoga. And so I probably did DDP yoga for a year. I did a certification in DDP yoga, started teaching it alongside the work I was already doing as a personal trainer. So I was running kind of like DDP yoga classes at the gym I worked at in England.
Did you call them DDP yoga class?
I did call them DDP. Yeah. You got to give the nod to DDP. I was a certified DDP instructor, and so
did you get to meet him?
No, I'd love to meet Dallas Page. Obviously, I was working in England at this point. He's, I think he's based maybe in Texas. I'm not sure actually what state he's in, but
we'll send him the link anyways.
Yeah, we'll send him the link. Maybe we'll get a shout out. So I started teaching DDP yoga, and my yoga practice just slowly became more Eastern from there.
Mm.
There'd be little pockets in this DDP yoga where you'd sit and watch your breath, and you become a lot more aware of your breathing consciously, and you kind of start to tune inwards and kind of go into yourself. And I think that's the first time, as a 19, 20-year-old, I'd really done that, and I started to find an element of peace through that. I had I won't say a volatile childhood, but my dad wasn't around, or he was and he wasn't, and I had some anger issues as an early teen. I acted out, and so seeing red and having anger issues was a bit of a theme for me as a child, and so finding a way to kind of outlet that. Keep going. To try and find a way to find an outlet for that, and to kind of calm those emotions was quite profound, because I'd never done that before. And so yoga really was the window into that. And I just followed it from there. I started learning Ashtanga and Vinyasa and Hatha and doing other certifications. And
did you do that in England?
I did that in England, yeah. And Yoga Nidra. And then, I think kind of my growth as a person has kind of paralleled my growth in my career, because as I've added more modalities to my life that I find beneficial, I will then move into them and do certifications in that area, and then be able to give that to others. I went to Bali and had a hot stone massage in Bali, a 90-minute hot stone massage. I came out of that feeling amazing, so relaxed, and I was like, God, that'd be so cool to give to my clients. Go back to New Zealand, went to Pada Umu of all places, and did a hot stone massage course, and then started doing hot stone massage. So at this point, I guess as a trainer, kind of looking at that holistic wheel, I feel at this point I can give my clients what they need in any of those areas. And I think that's a really cool thing as a kind of well-rounded trainer, is be able to see the subtleties of where someone's at and kind of know what they need in that moment. Whether that's, doing a bodybuilding workout or a strength and conditioning workout, or whether it's we need to lie down and breathe and work through some stuff, or
or whether it's we need to do some stretching and mobility work or some meditation, it's or massage if they need release work. It's like kind of looking at it from every element. And so, yeah, it was the same thing with yoga. I just kind of naturally followed the path of a passion, which was yoga at the time, and still always will be. I think yoga is, we only see the surface level of yoga in the West. There's 4 pillars of yoga, for those that don't know. Jhana yoga, Raja yoga, Bhakti yoga. The other one's gone. Oh, karma yoga, of course. The law of karma. But we only focus on one, which is the movement on the mat.
Okay.
And really, that's one of the things I'll say in a yoga class too, is who's done yoga before? Pretty much everybody puts the hand up at this point. But then you say, who can tell me what yoga is? And not many people have an answer. I mean, yoga means the union, right? The connection of the higher and lower self, or the body and the mind. But really, yoga is a whole way of being in every asset of your life. We're always doing yoga, whether we know it or not. And so really teaching people really the foundational pillars of yoga and how you're always doing yoga, not just when you're on a mat. That's one of the greatest things about yoga that I find.
And that's one thing I've really noticed about you since moving in here just over a week, just how subtle you are in your movements. And when you put things down, like I don't even hear when you come into a room, you just kind of enter into a room, you put things down, and you close things very quietly. Like that's just your being, you know. I've noticed that off you, like from day one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm quite the opposite, right? Like I'm quite heavy in my walking, and I'm.
It's like there's a grizzly bear walking around the
house. You know, I walk with purpose, and I get there, and and I'll do my thing. But you know, like there's definitely can be a lot more teaching and training there to be a little bit more the art of like present, and you know, like you can definitely see, you can almost see where it's like a similarity to like the Japanese samurai or ikigagi or something like that as well. You know, like you can see these different ideologies or ways of being out in the world that are in the East that, you know, that are just kind of be a little bit more subtle and present and all of that, you know. But yeah, I can 100% say that it's one thing I've noticed since you've moved in, and just you explaining that just makes a whole lot more sense.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. I won't take all the credit for that and say it's all because I'm a peaceful yogi. Maybe a small element of that is my people-pleasing wound, and I'm very, very, very considerate of the people. And so, especially if I was up early in the morning, it wouldn't just be my yogic way of putting things down quietly. It would be, shit, Mike's asleep and he's probably got a busy day. I don't want to wake him up. So I'm going to be quiet.
Very nice.
Yeah. I'm very maybe too.
Yeah. I can definitely feel it would be on the too far end, because it's like if it's inhibiting exactly what you're doing, then the intention for it is lessening you.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. So there'll be a small element of that. I'm not going to lie. There'll be a little bit of that.
Some good ownership, bro. You live here now. You have to own that shit in the portal.
Oh, you can't hide. You can't hide in the portal.
No, you can't. That's beautiful, brother. I think that's a beautiful, well-rounded kind of look at you and where you've come from, and I think Yogi. You know, yoga is a big part of you, and I'm still so fascinated just by the way you can move your body. You know,
that's actually from my stripper days. Yoga.
Yeah,
Vanilla Velvet.
I'm gonna put his stripper link down at the show notes there. So if you want to hire him,
OnlyFans will go up after this. I'm still recovering from the hub, so any money.
This is his coming out entrance party into the world of OnlyFans.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Everyone else is doing it. Why not?
Oh, that's it. Make that easy money, eh?
Make that easy money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, brother, I think I would love to hear your journey for the last, now what's leading into the last, just over 12 months now, wouldn't it? You know?
Pretty much bang on.
Yeah, so you've pretty much gone like hub through COVID, all that sort of stuff. It kind of like, you know, ended up shutting down and not getting the funding anymore. It lasted however long it needed to last. Let's put it that way. And then you started going back to, you were just doing a lot more one-on-one work with your clients and kind of just building all of that up. And then from that story, tell us what happened from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge 12 months. You know, there was, I guess, a little bit of resentment maybe towards the end of the hub, and just how much free work I was doing and how little I felt
it was appreciated or acknowledged.
Yep.
Like I said, a lot of free hours. It was affecting my paid hours because the balance was off. My two close friends that I mentioned before that I met in America that I came out here with, we lived together for the first 5 years we were in New Zealand. They got married and moved out, and I decided to keep the house on myself. I turned their bedroom into a yoga room for clients. But my rent was gone up. I think we were at $750 a week plus bills, plus food. My outgoings were like $1,500 a week, and I just felt like I'd fell onto this hamster wheel. I felt like I was in the rat race that the rebellious black sheep at 19 years old that was pulled down the matrix was completely against. So I was like, here I am stuck in this cycle, and it felt stale. And yeah, the lease was coming up on that house that I had to myself, and I thought, you know what, there was other reasons for it, but I felt I needed to change.
What were the other reasons?
I knew he was going to do that. Damn. The other reasons were women, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I'd had the same patterns with the last few women I'd dated or been intertwined with.
What did they look like?
God, you're a son of a bitch. What did that look like? That looked like it looked like anxious attachment.
Okay. So you would hold on too tight, they would start to pull away, or vice versa, or?
Yeah, I think being in the space that I'm in and the work that I do, I would attract women maybe in the need of healing.
Yep.
If we can put it that way.
Yeah.
That might have had toxic relationships in the past or been gaslit or whatever else. And
You're a safe, soft energy.
I'm a safe, soft energy. I'm very, very good at holding space. I'm very good at creating a safe container. As someone that guides mushroom therapy sessions, that is the most paramount thing to get right, is set and setting. So to be able to create a calm, grounded, safe, present mindset and setting is one of my greatest strengths. And so people feel safe in that. And so I would kind of help these women, if you like, move through whatever they're moving through, and during the process develop an attachment. And these, by the way, aren't clients that I'm developing feelings for. These are people that I'm kind of seeing
in a romantic sense.
And I would find myself getting attached. And I had the running theme of my life is abandonment. Really, as heavy as that sounds, I've always had the experience of abandonment from being 6 months old up until now.
Dad being in and out, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, my dad left my mum when I was about 6 months old, and he ran off with a barmaid. It's a typical English story. We're kind of diverting now, but I can go into it. My mum she met someone else who's my sister's father. My sister's 3 years younger than me. He came into my mum's life when I was probably about 2. I didn't know any different. He was like my dad. Mine was gone from the picture. This guy was my new dad. My sister's born, I think when my sister was about 3, which would have made me about 6, my mum found out that he cheated on her. So my mum's got a running pattern of these kind of men in her life. Not so much anymore. She's with an amazing guy now. But for a long time during my childhood, this was the pattern. But he was like my dad. And so when they split up, me and my sister used to go to his house every other weekend. And that happened for a few years. His new partner was actually one of my mum's old friends. And she's quite a sly, vindictive woman. She never liked me being around. And so it just got to a point where she said to my sister's dad, you can carry on seeing Ellie, who's my sister, but I don't want you to see Brad anymore because he's not your biological son. And so one day he came round at the weekend to pick us up. We were both stood there with our backpacks on, ready to go. And he turned to my mum and he said, I can take Ellie, but I can't take Brad anymore. And so he took my sister and left, and I stood there with my bag on, and I was like, what have I done wrong? You know, why aren't I going? What, doesn't he love me? Or
Yep. All the things.
yeah, so I got abandoned by two fathers.
Yep.
And then my actual father came back into my life, you know, not long after that. That was a very kind of negative experience, going and seeing him on the weekends. I did not want to go. And that happened for a few years. And then I ended up going back and seeing my sister's dad again. And so this kind of like abandonment has been a running theme through my childhood. And so inevitably I developed, I guess, this anxious attachment style where there would be a fear that once I'm close to someone, they were going to up and leave or go, which would create this anxiety around it. And it's not really until, you know, a few deep mushroom ceremonies that I really felt a massive shift in that kind of, that self-love, that feeling of lack had kind of moved, where I needed love externally from myself to feel full, and I started to feel it from within. I think that's the power of the spiritual practices. But even so, right up until the end of the hub, I was finding myself in this situation where I'd start seeing someone, and I'd almost put them on a pedestal.
Yep.
Like, oh, she's amazing. Oh, rather than me being really grounded in my masculinity and being completely content and comfortable with my own being, my own presence, that I didn't need anything outside of myself. And that's really when the energy shifted, when I found myself falling into that space. And so, yeah, I think I'd been messaging this girl that I really, really liked. And a friend of mine, Chloe Palmer, who is a very good mirror, said to me, I was explaining about this girl and how I was feeling, and she just looked at me and said, I'm getting some really strong beta male energy from you right now. And I went, ooh, really? She said, yeah. And I was like, ooh, tell me more. She unpacked it, and I saw there was the mirror. You know, I was seeing something that I couldn't see. I was like, I see that. Okay. And so I stopped focusing on that girl, who was ruling my mind.
I think you had a conversation with me as well around that time. I think we spoke similarly things about it as well.
Yeah, it was big. Like,
yeah.
So just to jump back a little bit, I gave up the house and I bought a van from the girl that I was interested in.
Okay.
Now people probably know who it is. So I had this van, and I'm now living in a van. So I've gone from having a house to myself to now living in a van, which then left me with a lot of time.
So what caused you to? So you're seeing this mirror in yourself, you know, of like this different energy of, you know, basically people pleasing your way of people above you, making yourself less than, kind of doormat energy, beta energy, not really in your masculine. You know, like, and obviously, so then this polarity is not there. So then it's all intertwined of like attachment and all that nasty bullshit, you know. So what was it from that time of kind of being mirrored that? What, if anything, outside of that caused you to go, okay, I'm going to get rid of my house and all of my possessions and move to a van?
Anger.
Okay.
I was angry.
What were you angry at?
I guess deep down myself. It's always the self.
Yeah.
But I was angry at women.
Yep.
You know, I felt that I'd done a lot of work on myself. I have a lot to give. I'm coming from a place of genuinity. What's the word for that? Genuineness.
Genuineness. Oh, that's good. I would say
a place of genuineness.
Yeah.
I made a word if it's not a word.
We make up words on here all the time.
We'll make up words.
Yeah.
It's a real word. I was coming from a place of just authenticity.
Yep.
And I was ready for that, and I felt that I was being burnt every time I tried. And while I'd had that pattern previously, this time was the last time. You know, I really liked this girl. She was on my mind. I was thinking about it a lot. At this point, I'm living in a van, right? So I just transitioned into the van as this was happening. and all the distractions are gone.
Yeah.
It's just me in a van. And I'd gone traveling up north, and because it was just me and this element of lack, she was on my mind all the time. And I just wanted to, I really liked her. I wanted to message her, and I wanted to talk to her, and I wanted to see her. Little did I know, she was on the festival scene and kind of hooking up with a friend of mine that I know. So while I'm here in my beta male energy state, like, thinking about her or whatever, she's busy having fun with someone else, right? This is the story.
Yep.
And so when all that kind of came to light, I felt angry.
Yeah.
I felt betrayal. I felt just all these things. And it was good. Like, it was fuel. I've been in that kind of medicine space for 2 or 3 years where I just felt always peaceful and compassionate and loving, and I just lived in that energy. And all of a sudden, these feelings of anger are coming up. These feelings aren't really felt since I was the teenager I was talking about before. It was like I was getting in touch with an old self. And I had to channel that, right? And so I went to the gym and I started lifting weights. And I've had an on and off relationship with kind of bodybuilding and weightlifting since starting as a personal trainer. But I was in there like 2 hours a day, headphones on, metal music, just channeling this anger into physical work.
And chastising yourself at the same time as well.
Yeah, but again, that was fuel.
Yeah.
Like, I was taking it out on the weights. My whole diet changed. I was in a massive calorie surplus. I was trying to put on size. I went from, 73 kilograms to 82 kilograms. And I've just realized there's another part of the story I might diverge into.
You tell the story, brother.
I'm going to tell a story. I went on a medicine walk out west during this same time with...
Well, if you weren't going to bring this up, I was going to lead you to it anyway.
You're going to lead me to it anyway.
It's a big part of your story.
It's one of my favorite stories, actually.
Why don't you talk, I think before we get there, why don't you just talk about how actually you got involved with meeting all these people and how you actually got into that?
Okay. The story I'm about to tell is about a friend of mine, a great friend of mine, like a man I have a lot of admiration for, Daniel Hooker, who is a UFC fighter. So just to regress, when I first got to New Zealand, I worked in the physio clinic. I worked at a kickboxing gym in Penrose called Elite Thai Kickboxing, ran by the legend himself, Jason Sutty, 6-time world champion kickboxer, K1.
Legend.
Absolute legend. Creator of King in the Ring, of Arsenal X. And he's really given a platform for a lot of these fighters that we know of today. Israel Adesanya won King in the Ring, I think 2 times. Carlos Ulberg, Dan Hooker, they've all been through King in the Ring. They've all been through that circuit. And so I worked for Jason for 3 years at ETK, teaching yoga to the fighters. MMA or martial arts specific yoga is kind of a niche that I created several years ago. And after working for Jason for a few years, who also, by the way, runs amazing Wim Hof workshops. He was taught from Wim Hof himself. And I've been to a few of these workshops, and Jason said to me, we're doing a Wim Hof workshop on Sunday, you should come in for it. And I said, I've done a few of these workshops, I don't think I'll come in. And he said, no, you should come in. And I said, oh, okay, I will then. So I came in, and Dan and Israel were both on the Wim Hof course. And so I got to talk to Dan and Israel and kind of gave him a little bit of a pitch about the work that I do and how I might be of service to them. And I actually did a little bit of a stretch and release session for Dan right there. Gave him my number and thought, maybe it's a long shot, maybe he gives me a call. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And he messaged me, a few hours later and said he was feeling great from the session and kind of go into his gym, Combat Academy, a few days later and do another session with him. And that's kind of the rest is history. I ended up working at Dan's gym for the next 3 years. He closed his gym and I closed the Holistic Hub on the same day.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. But I worked for his gym for 3 years while it was open. And became quite close to Dan and a few of the other fighters there in the process. So Dan's been an amazing friend over the years, and he's taught me a lot without knowing that he's teaching me.
Yeah. He's been your unmentored mentor.
Yes, my unmentored mentor.
Yeah.
And so, and I will just say that goes both ways. I'll speak for Dan, because I think we are a yin and yang. There are elements of my work that are of great benefit to him, vice versa, which then leads to the rest of this story, right? So me and Dan went on a medicine walk with some Wachuma from San Pedro, and we went out to Bethel's, and we were doing this walk, and we walked past some sand dunes, really steep sand dunes, and Dan said this is where the UFC fighters come to do hill sprints. We run up and down these sand dunes, and I said there's no way you run that, it's vertical. And he said we do, and I said well go on then, prove it. And he said well if I do it, you're going to do it with me. So we both went to the bottom and we sprinted up the sand dune, and I'm eating sand because he's 10 meters ahead of me. I get to the top and my calves are burning and my lungs are burning, and start walking, and I start to feel nauseous. And granted, it could have been the belly full of San Pedro juice, but
you're gonna feel a little nauseous drinking a belly full of cactus sometimes as well.
Yeah, especially sprinting up a vertical sand dune. And so we start walking, and I start to feel a bit more nauseous, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna hold this down. And I mentioned it, and Dan laughed at me, and he said, "Oh, you're fine, just breathe." I wasn't fine. I got on my knees and dug a hole in the sand and started throwing up. Funnily enough, this is my favorite part of the story. This is like Mad Max, by the way. This is just like barren salt, like sand plains, as far as the eye can see.
It's like, the out west of Auckland.
Out west of Auckland.
Just black sand. Beautiful, beautiful space. If you have never been there, have a look on Google. But yeah, it's just like you look like you're in the Middle East somewhere, or you're on Mars. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a different planet. And there's not a person in sight until I start throwing up, and I kind of lean my head to the right, and I see this really old Asian couple just beelining straight towards us. Of all the angles they could have taken, of all the degrees on the compass, directly towards me. And they literally walked.
The universe literally walked up and witnessed you.
The universe walked up and witnessed me at my lowest, throwing up into a hole in the sand, while people laughed at me. And so I dug the hole back over, and I got up and carried on walking. And we walked down to this spot that we like, this Lake Bethel's. Is it Bethel's Lake?
Yeah.
We lied there in the reeds, and all of a sudden we went quiet. And we, went into inner contemplation mode, as the medicines do best. And I started thinking, wow, I'm 32 and I'm out of shape. I just threw up from running up a sand dune. God, I've not really been going to the gym. I've been doing a lot of medicine work and a lot of omming and a lot of meditation, but where's my physicality? And so I really sat with that for who knows how long, what is time in that space, until I broke the silence and I said, God, I'm out of shape. And Dan looked at me and he laughed, and he was about to say something and he stopped himself. Now, Dan has no filter and doesn't care what other people think. So the fact that he stopped himself, I knew I was in for something. And I said, what were you going to say? And he said, oh, nothing. And I said, tell me what you were going to say. And he said, you hippie wimp. And I went, oh. It was like the beta male thing all over again. Oh, I am a hippie wimp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the realization that I'd fallen very, very deep into the yin, which was necessary. It's part of the journey that I had to go through. But I'd lost the yang. And that's something that I had to rediscover. And that really tied into the women thing and the relationship thing too. It tied into the business side of things, the whole thing, right? It's the balance between these two polarities, and I was missing the balance as a Libra. Quite interesting, because it's all about the balance.
Totally.
And so that really was a big realization in that moment. And yeah, Dan was a huge inspiration for the next part of the journey. But at City Kickboxing, they run something called the Alta, which the viewers of this podcast might already be aware of, because Mike did the same thing. And so I knew of this program. And I said to Dan, do you think I should do it? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, you should. I think you should do it. And and I'll fund you to do it. So Dan paid for me to do the Alta. At that
What a
point,
lad.
yeah, what a lad. At that point, there was definitely no saying no to that. And so I signed up to the Alta, which I think began in February last year. I moved out of the house in December and into the van. I was going through that period of anger. I was still in it. So I'd already been hitting the weights for 2 months and then started the Alta. And that was a whole 5-month journey. And so I was sleeping outside the gym every night in the van. Yeah, every night in the van, sleeping outside the gym. My alarm would go off at 6. I'd wake up, I'd roll out the van, I'd brush my teeth on the side of the street, pee in a bush, grab my training gear and get into the gym.
Yep.
And I'd be in there for a couple of hours every morning. Broke a rib, broke my big toe, broke my little toe. Went through the adversity of that. I had some very assertive masculine trainers, which were what I needed. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Mark Timms, my boxing coach. It's a love-hate relationship, me and Mark Timms. I love him and he hates me. He's a brummy, just hard-out English dude. And you'd think just very physical, didn't have the other side of it. But there we are hitting pads, and I'd find myself leaving my hand on the pad and then looking at him. And after I'd done it a few times, he looked at me and he said, I know you've probably got daddy issues, but every time you hit the pad, you don't need to leave it there and look into my eyes for approval. You're doing just fine. And I said, whoa, wow, how did you pick up on that?
I love it.
And so the whole thing was a spiritual journey too. It's not like it was just a physical journey. And so there I was, completely unplugged from the community that I'd just been in. There's no more hub. My phone's not going off all the time in relation to that. I'm just unplugged from it all. And here I am every night, sleeping in the van outside the gym, waking up and training, getting my ass kicked, kicking some ass, bit of both. And just going through that process for 5 months until I got in there and had my first fight in a cage. Another inspiration for that was, it's a lot of things that contribute to it, but Andrew Tate actually, I saw a reel of him on Instagram, and he said, I don't know how any guy can get into his 30s and never have got in there and done it. And I never had a fight at school. I was always brains over brawn. I could always talk myself out of a fight. And I was friends with the bullies because I was smart enough to make friends with the bullies. So I never really ended up in fights at school. And so I never really felt that kind of adversity and what was it like to be punched in the face and then have to carry on. And so I knew it was a part of myself I needed to find. It was part of finding my yang. And really that was the whole premise for the journey. And, 5 months later, I got in there and had my fight, and it was a 3-round dog fight. It didn't go how I expected with my manifestation of finishing it in the first round. I took a bit of a beating in the first round and came back and gave it back in the second, and came out and won the third round, and then won by decision. The camera stops. And so I managed to come back through that. I think the medicine work helped in all of that, because I found myself very calm and very present through all those emotions and all those moments in the fight. And I think that gave me the level-headedness and the inner calmness to be able to kind of recollect after that first round and carry on through and get the win by decision.
Yeah.
And really that was the the pinnacle of that whole transformation, of that whole journey. And then, quite poetic again and beautiful, I went to this exact same spot me and Dan did that medicine walk on, this time with our other good friend Aaron Toes him up, who's absolutely killing it and will no doubt be in the UFC pretty soon. And he's like my Maori teacher. If I ever want to hear about mythology or Maori stories or understanding Maori words or anything like that, he's the guy that I talk to. And the three of us went out to the same spot at Bethel's, and we went and we drank the wachuma again. But this time I was given my punamu from Aaron and Dan, and that was like my initiation, if you like, or I don't know how what you would call it, but yeah, after 8 years of being in New Zealand and
knowing that this is something you are given, not something you necessarily buy. To receive that from those two men was, a really proud and profound moment. And it was really the ending of that cycle, that journey that I'd just been through.
Yeah, you definitely earned it, brother. And it was beautiful just to witness you in that process. Because every now and then, you'd come around for dinner and we'd hang out and you'd be like, just give us a little update of what you got going on. But I could just see the shifts and changes in your energy throughout that, and it was just amazing to watch. It was amazing to watch you just grow your masculine energy. It was amazing to watch, in such a healthy way, but being supported by other strong men, and you're just, take Dan, for example, he's very in his physical, but you can learn from somebody who's at the pinnacle of their physical and learn how to take those lessons. And then this is where I think what you're talking about, you're both each other's teacher. It's you're taking him on medicine walks to introspectively look at himself. And this is where having strong male friendships, relationships within your life as a man is so, so prevalent for you to be able to boost up and get boosted up.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that on the head. I think that's one of the strongest elements that we're missing from society, and I think it's showing in many, many different ways. I feel called out to do a little shout out to Rich, because I know he's doing another, I don't know what date that is.
I'll tell you, it's the 1st of June. The 1st of May. So the 1st of June, I'll put it up anyways, but we support
put it up
stuff.
because it's things like that are so beneficial. And I think, over the decades or the centuries, we've always had that kind of generational relationship where information and wisdom is passed down from the elders, and that's really how the youth learn, is from the experience and wisdom of the elders. And I think that's really been severed. And a lot of men are lost. A lot of men don't know their direction or their purpose. The whole dynamic and relationship with women come into that as well, because men need purpose. That's our innate design, right? And so when our purpose is missing, we're lost.
Yeah, and it's just being more and more shamed in today's world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. I mean, you could even reflect on to the older version of yourself of what you would call the beta version of you, but it's, if you had solid male supporters and role models in your life, then you wouldn't have necessarily had to have got to that point for you to be like, oh shit, but ultimately that was your journey to go through to refine that balance again. But that's a great example of just what we're talking about here as well.
Sure. And I'm blessed that I'm, self-aware or conscious enough to see it, and then to actually work on it and transmute it and grow from it, because a lot of people don't have those skill sets or those modalities or just the influence around them to create that change. And so there will never be a change, and they'll have kids and pass it on to their kids, and it's just this.
Well, for sure, but because of your work and your medicine work and all of your various inner work modalities you've gone through, when you got mirrored back those instances of yourself that A you didn't know about and you're now just finally seeing it, or B you didn't want to know about, and either or, they're just as tough to hear it triggered you, but in a way of not an unconscious trigger. It wasn't and I'm gonna now get mad and angry and be unhealthy about it. You were like, ooh, that fucking stings. And if something stings like that, then there's truth to it, and I've got to look at it.
Oh, it was the best thing. It was like, ooh, ow, ooh, tell me more. I like this.
Yeah.
And that's really the switch, I guess, from the victim mindset of, you're picking on me, or I'm not like that, totally, or whatever else, and just dismissing it, than actually seeing the value in what that person's sharing. Because, and I had this conversation the other day, friendships should not be comfortable, right? That's a real friend is someone that will make you a little bit uncomfortable, because they're true and authentic enough to be a mirror and to pull you up on things and to show you aspects of yourself that you otherwise wouldn't see. And that's a real friend, right? They're wanting your growth, and they're seeing things that might be inhibiting your growth or inhibiting your relationships. And if they want the best for you, then they're gonna show you that.
Well, that's ultimate love.
Absolutely.
That's ultimate love. Being like, hey, this is something I've noticed about you,
100%,
and I'm gonna fucking let you know because I love you.
And one of the reasons I moved here, right? I was still in the van, and weighing up options. What do I do next? Where do I go? And we ended up on the phone, and Mike mentioned that Ryan was moving out, and it was right. I knew that I would be around a mirror, and around someone else that's on the path, that's focused on eating well and training and exercising and continually growing themselves. And those are the people you want to surround yourself with.
Correct.
You want people that are pulling you up, not dragging you down. And so I knew if there were still any blind spots, they would most definitely get discovered living alongside Mike.
Yeah, and vice versa as well.
And vice versa.
Like there's definitely lots of softness I can learn. And there's definitely lots of just discipline I can learn from you as well. Like you're a very, you're that Manny Jen. Like one Manny Jen left, but another Manny Jen turned up. But you're the 5-1. You're the one who. You bring in the information, you're the role model, and it's like you're out in the world doing all the learnings, and then you'll bring it here. This is why you can articulate your story so very well in today's podcast. I knew it was going to go this way. I knew you'd be able to articulate it so well, and it just rolls nicely. And everybody listening to this is going to be like, "Fuck yes!" Like I've been taken on a journey of where you've been and where you are.
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement.
Yeah,
received and appreciated.
So where are you now, brother? Like you've now. Made these big shifts and changes in your life, and you're now starting, you're living here, and like life's exciting, and you are definitely feel like you're more balanced in your energies and all of that. And so okay, let's do this two-part. What are some of the biggest takeaway learnings of the version of you sitting here now, the man who's sitting beside me, of your whole life experience journey, especially the last kind of 2 years to now? What are some of the biggest takeaways from there? And then, where to from here?
Yeah, so after the Alta, it wasn't long after that, I went back to England just to finish that side of things and bring us up to where we are now. Went home for the first time in 6 years, spent a couple of months with my family, which was all the things, confronting and challenging at times and beautiful, and all the things. It made me very much aware of how much work I've done on myself, of areas that were still stickiness around my dynamics with my family, and there was a lot that came from that. And then from there I went to Thailand for 6 weeks and had the most amazing experience in Thailand. That was the opposite of being at home with the family. I was just completely free and liberated and just running around Thailand having a good old time. And then from Thailand came home early December, started house sitting for my old friends that I used to live with that moved out, and looking after their dogs for 2 months.
And don't skip the part that you're in Thailand, so you're doing a badass Muay Thai camp for a month.
Yeah, I went to Bang Tao in Phuket, which is an amazing, probably one of the best gyms I've ever been to, of all the countries I've been in. Ran by Frankie Hickman, an amazing wrestling coach, and Alexander Volkanovski's coach. There's a strong relationship between City Kickboxing and Bang Tao, so I ended up going out there and training there for not the whole 2 months. I won't fabricate the story. It was more like a month. There was a month after that where Brad's shadow ran rampant. I purposely let the shadow out.
You gotta let it out. You put it on a leash, man.
I let it off the leash. It lives on the leash. I let it off, and I let it enjoy being off leash.
Good.
And so that was a
because that's the balance, baby.
That's the balance.
Yeah.
Again, it's a Ramdas quote. Ramdas spoke to his friend that didn't have a body, called Emmanuel, off-planet friend of his. And Ramdas said to him, what do I do next? What do I do now? And Emmanuel said, well, you're on Earth. Why don't you try taking the curriculum? Why don't you try being human? And Ramdas said, never really thought of that. I was like, you know what? Why don't I just have some human experiences and just be human?
Let's go drink some whiskey buckets at a full moon party. And
why not? It's like I'm this little alien, this little soul incarnated in this meat sack, and it's like I can sit here omming and opening my third eye 24/7, but why not experience all the experiences?
I'm gonna go get a little liddy.
Apart from crystal meth, that's the one thing I probably won't touch.
You're not gonna hit crystal meth.
Nah, but have the human experiences and enjoy doing it, and don't feel guilty for doing it either. That's the other big one.
Yep.
Thailand was amazing. Came back, house sat for a couple of months. Couldn't really work at that point because I was looking after the dogs, all day. And so really, the last month I've been staying between my New Zealand families and my friends, which has been great. And then, last weekend moved into here and immediately got sick. I got a cold. First time I've been sick in a couple of years, really, which was necessary, I guess, in some ways. It was humbling.
Because you're upgrading.
It's an upgrade, but I also fell into that, I'm too conscious to get sick. I never get sick anymore.
I'm better than biology.
And then out of nowhere, on comes the cold. And I'm lying in bed for a week.
Yeah.
But hey, it was enjoyable. I allowed myself to lie in bed for a week.
You did.
And to play some PlayStation. Seems that I was sick and I couldn't really see clients or do anything, and just enjoying being still and doing a bit of procrastinating and enjoying it. So it was a really good first week here, just living in my little cave. But now business is starting to build back up. I've set up a strong relationship now between City Kickboxing and the physio clinic that I work at. So we're working a lot with the MMA fighters now of all statures, of all rankings. From we've had Israel Adesanya and Dan and Carlos and Tyson Pedro in and those guys, and we've had the amateurs and some of the Alta guys in that are just starting. So we're starting to really look after the fighters'
beautiful
health and well-being, which is hugely rewarding for me because it's the only sport I'm passionate about, and I kind of live vicariously through them. I've got in there and done it. I'm 32. I'm not destined to be a UFC fighter by any means. Had I started 15 years ago, potentially maybe. But I get to see these guys do their thing, and I get to help them do their thing the best they can, and that's massively rewarding for me. So that's the biggest element of my work right now. I'm going back to one-on-one coaching, in whether that's bodybuilding, strength and conditioning, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, functional breathing, how to use your diaphragm, the foundations and basics of breathing, all that stuff. So I'm getting back into that in the clinic, and working with clients in their homes. And very soon I'll be moving back into the medicine space, which is the what's next for Brad question. I think, again, as that Libra, it's always trying to find this middle ground or this balance. And so I think I've gone from yin, just completely switched gear into yang for the last year. And now I find myself just kind of gravitating back into this middle point, this middle way, which was always the plan. I kind of foresaw that I needed to go fully into the yang. I needed to be in that space. I needed to experience it.
And you're having someone trying to beat you up as well. So, you kind of need to be in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you're living around MMA fighters, you need to be in it.
Yeah.
Because the banter is real.
Yeah.
Be in the yang. So that's where I was. And I find myself now at the point where I really actually feel ready to start shifting back into this middle space. And so that'll be first me sitting with some medicines and maybe even doing a breath work with Mike, we've talked about, which I'm really excited about. But I think, just sitting with myself and some mushrooms is my next point of call. Maybe some ayahuasca, just really sitting back into that space. And then moving back into holding ceremonies again with guided psilocybin ceremonies, which is something I was doing a lot of before I took that year off. So that is really my calling. That's really one of my strengths, is working in that area, and it's one of the most rewarding things I can do. Helping someone put on muscle is rewarding. Helping someone lose fat, great.
Yep.
But helping someone have
change the fabric of their own reality.
Change the fabric of their own reality. I like that. Is one of the most rewarding things you could ever give someone.
Yeah, it is.
And that's how I fill my cup, right? And that's another thing I've noticed with this year off, just watching my own mental state, is how much I actually fill my own cup from helping other people. And when I'm not, that's my purpose. And then when my purpose isn't there and I'm not helping people, I don't feel as high as I am when I am. I am when I am.
Yeah, and then just again getting that balance right where you fill your own cup first.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's the...
It's not putting people on pedestals anymore. It's not any of that in any fashion. It's just going, no. It's being a little bit more selfish first, Yeah. Because when you're more selfish, then you can serve others from your saucer.
100%, and that's wisdom right there. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out, if I'm not 100% myself, how can I give 100% to my clients or whoever needs me at my fullest, right? And so if I'm burnt out or tired or, you know, not eating properly because I'm too busy working, I'm not of benefit to people in the way that I could be. And so, yeah, being a bit selfish and putting your own health and mind first, 100%.
Beautiful.
It's all beautiful.
Oh yeah. Any last words you'd like to let all the boys and girls out there in podcast land?
Just hello to everyone who's watching that I know or I don't know. Like we said at the start, it's been a year really of me being unplugged, and I really mean unplugged. I felt quite a blockage around social media. I might have shared a few stories during the Alta and a couple of posts in Thailand, I think, but other than that, I've really been off social media and, you know, that whole circus that it is. And so there's a lot of people I've not seen in a year or more. Like I mentioned all at the start, what do you look like? What's going on in your life? So that's in a nutshell what's kind of been going on over the last year and kind of what's coming moving forward. I feel my social battery's recharged. I'm feeling more inclined to start seeing people again and being a bit more extroverted and hanging out with people. So
just feeling frisky, ladies.
He sees right through my from my nice speech. Yes, my OnlyFans I will link. No, honestly, friendships, romantic, all of it. I'm completely open and ready to step back out of my cave or cocoon. And so, yeah, is anyone that wants to reach out, even if I don't know you, and I don't know, you feel like you've connected with me a little bit through this, feel free to reach out. And if you do know me and you want to catch up, also reach out. I'm here and I'm ready to move back into
more balance.
Into some more balance.
Brother, it's beautiful. I'm going to put all your contact details just in the show notes. So if you do want to get hold of Brad via socials and whatnot, I'll have those there so you can say good day to him, even if you want to get some coaching from him or one-on-one, or even just pick his brain. He's a very insightful fellow.
We'll do the leg thing for Mike while we're finishing off. For those that were wondering what he was talking about.
He's literally, for the ones that are listening on
we'll just
audio,
sit there like that.
He's just literally stuck his foot behind his head.
Can still do it.
Very simply.
You know, I've put on a few kilograms and I've put on a little bit more muscle, but
it's going to be your trick when you're 75.
If I can do that when I'm 75, the journey's going well.
I think so. Brother, thank you so much. I really, I learned a lot more about you today as well. And also as well as a thank you, you know, like I went and watched you do the Alta, and that was my inspiration to go and do it. I literally signed up the next day because I watched you do it and saw your change and saw your heart into it. And so that's what led me going and doing that big spiritual journey for myself as well. So, you know, there's a massive give and take here for our friendship of learning and growing and all of that. So a massive thank you to you as well. Really appreciate it.
While we're getting mushy,
yeah,
thank you to you, because that was actually really big for me, and a proud moment that I'd inspired you in some way, because I've always kind of looked up to you as a breathwork coach and as a kind of a manly man.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the fact that I inspired you to go on that same journey, I was like, I was quite chuffed that, you know, I created that kind of opening for you to move into it too. And so,
yeah, you did, man.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's beautiful. It was an amazing journey, and I've shared about it on this podcast before. But you know, it's just going into all the realms of self. You know.
And we both got the win. We'll just have to clarify.
And we both got the win.
Both got the win.
Yes, in the third round, we didn't want to fight there either.
Yeah.
You know.
And so how epic's that? You know, what a way to finish the journey as well with a positive note of a win.
You know, you always say, it doesn't matter about the win, but in the back of your mind, it's always like, but I still got the fucking W. You know, I wanted that little bit more.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
So it was good, and you know, I'm going to go back and join the gym, and we'll start, you know, rolling and sparring and doing all the fun things, because that's definitely what's dropped quite quickly off my radar recently, but that's something I'll be picking back up, which will be fun.
Yeah, and anyone who's watching who is kind of interested in that space, now that we've talked about it, whether that's doing an Alta or just getting in there and trying some jiu-jitsu or some kickboxing, hit us up, because we're both going to be in there now a little bit more consistently. So if you want to come down and have a roll or hit some pads or just try martial arts or any form of training. If you've not got any physical training in your life and you're kind of wanting someone to show you the ropes with it, reach out.
Yeah. And here's a cool little thing that dropped into my mind. So ipso facto, you inspired me to go to the Alta. I did the Alta, and then my 17-year-old little brother signed up, and he's 5 weeks into the Alta. So you can see like the journey of inspiration, man. And like, you know, he just turned 18 last week, and so doing this journey at his age. I mean, you came around, you gave him some massage the other day because he's hurt his shoulders, and I gave him some pads, and I know he was just so thankful for all of that. But this just goes to show, when you just show up for yourself, you never know who's watching, you never know who's looking, you never know who'll be inspired by you just being your authentic self. You're, you know, carving your own path in this fucking world. You know, when you authentically do it, and you know, yes, you're gonna get judged, but all that sort of bullshit. But the more you do it, the more it just washes off you, and the more you can just not give a fuck about it. So, you know, show up on your socials, show up on your stories, show up in real life, you know, when you want to. You know, don't force it, because you never know who's watching. You never know who could be inspired by what you're doing, and that's a great story.
That's a really beautiful thing to finish on too. I mean, that is one of the pillars of yoga, right? Is karma yoga, and karma operates in different ways, but really it's the energy that we put out and how that then affects the universe or affects timelines, right? And even one sentence that we say to someone in a cafe could have a massive effect on their day and what they do next. I had a client, well, I wouldn't call him a client anymore, I'll call him a friend. He was one of my first clients at the gym I worked at in Yorkshire in England. I think he was about 18, I think I was 19, and I taught him some calisthenics and bodyweight training, and we did a few sessions in the gym. Here we are, 12 years later, and I got a message from him the other day, and he said, I've just come back to Sheffield and got a guest pass for the gym that we used to train at, and it took me back to our first training session, and I wanted to say I'm so grateful and thank you, because you completely opened me up to training, and I've never looked back. And he's put on a lot of muscle, and he's, you know, he was a rock star. He was in a band, but he was quite quite scrawny, quite skinny. And here he is now, like all bulked up, and his health's a massive part of his lifestyle now. Yeah. But if it wasn't for those few first training sessions we did, where I kind of inspired him to do calisthenics, he might never have got into fitness. And so receiving that message from him, 12 years on, was just made my day, made my week. And so, yeah, you never really know who you're inspiring and how far your words carry, you know. And so, yeah, keeping that in mind and in your presence is, I think, a powerful thing.
I think so. I think a beautiful place to finish. Go out there and inspire someone today, team. Well, thank you so much for listening to this incredible story. Thank you, Brad, for showing up just so authentically.
Absolute pleasure.
And to all of you who are our regular listeners, we love you. And we'll be here next week on another episode with Journey with Michael and Ryan. And Ryan will be back in a month's time. See y'all then. Shoo!